The following story is a translated and adapted conversation, recounting supernatural experiences from around the world. This content is intended for entertainment purposes only. Listen with an open mind and enjoy the thrill of the unknown. The content in this video is purely for entertainment. Viewer discretion is advised. If you are easily frightened, be prepared some stories might just send chills down your spine. If you're ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and immerse yourself in the world of the unexplained.
In the winter of 1966, Fort Devens, a sprawling Army Reserve installation in Ayer and Shirley, Massachusetts, was a place steeped in history and secrets. Established as Camp Devens in 1917, it had served as a training ground for World War I soldiers, a reception center for World War II draftees, and a prisoner of war camp for German and Italian soldiers from 1944 to 1946. Its brick buildings, including the pre-war three-story Hale Hall, bore the weight of countless live soldiers trained, interned, and some who never left. Hale Hall, with its Georgian Revival architecture, stood in the Vicksburg Square historic district, its windows dark, its corridors echoing with rumors of a ghost named George, linked to a POW's tragic death during World War II. Into this haunted landscape stepped Private First Class Robert Bobby Malone, a 22-year-old military police MP recruit assigned to Fort Devens Army Security Agency, ASA training facility, a Boston native raised on tales of war and duty. Bobby joined the Army to escape a dead-end factory job, hoping to prove himself in the high-stakes world of military intelligence security. His assignment at Hall guarding top-secret ASA materials was a test of nerve. But the stories of George, whispered by seasoned MPs, stirred a fear he couldn't shake. Armed with a .45 pistol, a flashlight, and a sense of duty, Bobby arrived at Devens, unaware that Hal Hale's past was waiting to confront him. The journey to Fort Devens was a plunge into isolation. Bobby drove from Boston in a borrowed Chevy, the January snow falling thick, the roads winding through farmland and forest. The base emerged from the blizzard grid brick barracks, skeletal trees, the Nashua River a frozen ribbon in the distance. Hale Hall loomed in Vicksburg Square, its 3 stories stark against the grey sky, its windows like eyes tracking his approach. The air was bitter, the scent of snow and coal smoke heavy, the silence broken by the crunch of boots and the hum of generators. Bobby's role was to guard Hale Hall's upper floors, where the ACEs stored classified cryptographic equipment and intelligence files. The building was under 24/7 MP surveillance, its corridors locked, its rooms sealed. His sergeant, a gruff Korean War vet named Kowalski, briefed him in the guard room. Patrol hourly, check locks, report anything unusual, and ignore the ghost stories. Kowalski grunted, but his eyes lingered on the stairwell, betraying unease. Bobby nodded, his .45 heavy on his hip. But the MP's whispers tales of George, a POW who either jumped or hung himself clung to him like the cold. That first day, Bobby explored Hale Hall, its corridors dim, its air stale with dust and old paint. The upper floor was a maze of locked offices, their doors marked with ACES seals, their windows frosted over. The stairs creaked, the radiators hissed, and the silence was oppressive, broken by faint taps like footsteps that vanished when he listened. He chalked it up to the building's age. But the stories gnawed at him. An Italian POW, wounded, leaping from a window to freeze in a snowdrift. A German POW, despondent, hanging himself in an attic room. No one knew which was true, but George was real to the MPs, seen pacing the upper floor, his form fading into walls. The first week was a grind of monotony and tension. Bobby patrolled with a veteran MP, Corporal Eddie Vargas, a wiry New Yorker who chain-smoked camels and joked about George to hide his nerves. "He's just a lost soul," Eddie said, but his flashlight lingered on shadows, his hand near his .45. They checked locks, swept rooms, and listened to the building's groans, creaking pipes, rattling windows, the wind's low moan. At night, the upper floor felt different, colder, heavier, as if the air was watching. Bobby's flashlight caught odd reflections in the windows, like faces, but they vanished when he looked closer. The MPs shared stories in the guardroom, their voices low. One claimed George appeared in a mirror, his face pale, his eyes hollow. Another heard whispers in German, unintelligible but urgent, from a locked room. Bobby, skeptical but rattled, kept his head down, focusing on his rounds. His motivation was simple: do the job, earn respect, maybe get promoted. But the stories stirred memories of his Irish grandmother's tales, banshees, spirits, the dead who lingered. He pushed them aside, but Halehorse silence was alive, its shadows sharper, as if hiding something. By his second week, Bobby was assigned solo night shifts, a test for the new guy. The other MP's Eddie, a quiet Texan named Harris, and a jittery rookie named Feldman, watched him with a mix of pity and amusement. "Don't shoot George," Feldman teased, but his laugh was forced, his eyes avoiding the stairwell. Bobby's rounds began at midnight, his flashlight cutting through the dark, his .45 a cold weight. The upper floor was a labyrinth of locked doors and frosted windows, its air icy despite the radiators, its silence broken by faint taps that echoed from nowhere. On his third solo night, January 15th, 1966, the blizzard outside worsened, snow piling against Hale Hall's walls, the wind howling like a chorus of wails. Bobby's rounds started routinely: check locks, sweep rooms, log the time. The guardroom radio crackled with static, its signal weak, playing faint jazz that cut in and out. At 2 a.m., he climbed to the upper floor, his boots echoing, his breath fogging in the chill. The air was colder than usual, the radiators silent, the windows rattling as if something was pressing against them. He swept his flashlight down the corridor, its beam weak, barely piercing the dark. The locked doors were secure, their acer seals intact, but the silence was rung too heavy, too still, like the moment before a scream. He heard a faint tap, then another, like boots on wood, coming from the far end of the hall. His pulse quickened, his hand gripping his .45. "Just the building," he muttered, but the taps grew rhythmic, deliberate, like a slow march. He called out, "Who's there?" His voice echoed, unanswered, but the taps stopped, replaced by a low, guttural moan, not from a throat, but from the air itself, vibrating through the walls. Bobby's flashlight flickered, its beam dimming, and the corridor darkened, the shadows writhing. He backed toward the stairs, his training kicking insecure the area. Report intrusions, but his fear was primal, a child's dread of the dark. The moan grew louder, a voice in German or Italian, unintelligible but anguished, pleading, "Hilf, aiuto." He froze, his grandmother's stories flooding back, his skin prickling as the air plunged to freezing, his breath a cloud. The taps resumed, closer, now a heavy tread, coming from the attic stairwell at the corridor's end. Bobby raised his flashlight, its beam catching a figure at the stairwells. Mouth a man, tall and gaunt, in a tattered World War II uniform, grey and unfamiliar, its insignia faded. His face was pale, his eyes hollow pits, his neck bruised with a rope's mark, his hands dripping with unseen snow. The figure was translucent, its edges fraying like smoke, its form pulsing with a sickly glow. Bobby's heart pounded, his training clashing with terror. "George," he whispered, the name escaping before he could stop it. He shouted, "Halt! Identify yourself." His voice cracked, the figure unmoving, its hollow eyes locking on him. The moan became a wail, a chorus of voices, German, Italian, English, accusing, "You left us." The figure glided forward, its boots silent but heavy, the floor creaking under an unseen weight. Bobby's flashlight died, plunging the corridor into darkness. The only light the figure's glow, its eyes searing into his soul. He felt a jolt, as if his mind was being peeled open. His guilt for joining late in a warless time, his fear of failing, his own safety while others died at Devens, like the pose in the snow or the rope. The figure moved closer, its hands reaching, cold and skeletal, their touch burning like frostbite. Bobby stumbled back, his .45 drawn, his training overriding panic. "Halt or I fire," he shouted, but the figure glided on, its wail a deafening storm, the walls shaking, dust falling from the ceiling. He fired once, twice, the .45's roar echoing, the muzzle flash blinding. The bullets passed through the figure, embedding in the wall. But it didn't falter, its form rippling, then reforming, gliding toward a locked door. Bobby fired again, his hands trembling, the shots clear, but the figure walked right through the wall, its wail fading, leaving a silence heavier than before. Bobby collapsed, his .45 clattering, his breath ragged, the corridor icy, the air alive with whispers. His flashlight flickered back on, its beam catching bullet holes in the wall, the door untouched, no tracks on the floor. The wail lingered in his ears, the figure's eyes burned into his mind. He stumbled to the guardroom, his radio dead, the jazz replaced by static, laced with German whispers. Eddie and Harris, on duty below, rushed up, their faces pale at his story. "You saw George," Eddie said, not a question, his cigarette trembling. Harris checked the wall, finding the bullets embedded, no exit holes, no blood, no sign of an intruder. Kowalski arrived, furious but shaken, inspecting the scene. "No one's here," he growled, but his eyes avoided the stairwell, his voice low. The MPs searched the upper floor, finding nothing, no tracks, no unlocked doors, only the bullet holes and a faint smell of snow and decay. Feldman, on the next shift, refused to patrol alone, his bravado gone, muttering about quitting. Bobby's report was buried, Kowalski citing misfire due to fatigue. But the MPs knew better, their whispers of George now laced with fear. Bobby couldn't sleep, the wail echoing, the figure's eyes haunting his dreams, visions of Poe's freezing, hanging, their faces his own, accusing him of forgetting. He checked the wall daily, the bullet holes a reminder, their edges cold to the touch. The ASA staff, unaware, worked on, but the MPs grew quieter, their patrols doubled, their flashlights brighter. Bobby heard taps at night, saw shadows in windows, felt cold hands in the dark, but George never reappeared, or so he told himself. Bobby requested a transfer a week later, unable to face Hale-Hall's corridors. Kowalski approved it, his gruffness soft, as if relieved. Eddie drove Bobby to the bus, the base shrouded in snow, Hale-Hall's windows glinting like eyes. The radio crackled, static whispering Hilf. Bobby didn't look back, afraid of what he'd see. In Boston, he tried to resume his life, taking a factory job, avoiding army talk. But Fort Devens clung to him, a shadow that darkened his days. He couldn't sleep without hearing the wail, couldn't pass brick buildings without feeling those cold hands. His dreams were haunted by George, by the posse, by his own face, accusing him of trespassing. Bobby avoided mirrors, fearing George's hollow eyes, and kept his .45 locked away, its way to curse. Sometimes, at night, he heard taps boots on wood, slow and deliberate, coming from his apartment's corners. He never looked, afraid of what he'd see, but the figure's eyes lingered, a stain that wouldn't fade. He burned his MP patch, hoping to break the link, but the wail persisted, faint but clear, a reminder that some halls never let go. A year later, Eddie sent Bobby a letter, saying Hale Hall was repurposed. The ASAR moved, but George was still seen pacing the upper floor, his form fading through walls. A new MP found bullet holes in another wall. No explanation, the smell of snow lingering. Bobby burned the letter, his hands trembling, but the wail lingered, a reminder that Fort Devens' dead were never truly gone.